crime is on everyone's minds. It's the #1 thing that people say they're concerned about. We've heard a lot about your feelings on it and that you want to do something about it. We want specifics now and try to differentiate yourself from the other candidates.
Yeah, so I mean, just to throw some numbers out, I mean, the reality is that we are trending in a positive direction. Violent crime has decreased by 8% in the past year. Homicides are down by 22%. That's the good. In the mixed bag or not so good category is that auto theft has increased by 16%. But there is some progress being made, so I would love to hear from the three of you. What do you attribute that progress to, and what would you do to make Houstonians feel safer?
We'll start with you.
First, you have to admit we have a problem. It's on everyone's mind, so we've got to have our leadership understand the public's concerns. I do. As chairman of criminal justice, I on a routine basis consult with law enforcement, crime victims, and other stakeholders. The real issue is the repeat violent offenders that are on the streets of Houston. Obviously, we need additional resources, which we'll cover later, but those numbers are moving in the right direction. But what is threatening us is there's 1,900 people today waiting to go to trial in Harris County for murder or capital murder. 1,900. But only 900 of them are in the county jail. There's 900 on the streets of Houston, either on bond or they're fugitives. That's the repeat violent offenders that you'll see holding up convenience stores, pistol whipping people in the parking lot, and ultimately shooting some. So we've got to have a mayor that can work with the county courts and get that. I passed legislation this spring. It'll be a huge game changer to move murder and capital murder cases to the front of the backlog. That was successfully done, and it immediately will start improving the backlog of violent offenders. But there are other issues, such as bringing resources together. Our forensics lab are taking a year to do ballistic testing. Rape kits are still over a year. You've got to have city resources, not just on streets and personnel as in terms of patrolmen, but it's what supports those patrolmen, and we're really doing a poor job. I'm very frustrated in Austin that they don't understand. People cannot be released from jail or prison with nowhere to go. It contributes to our homeless issue, but it also jeopardizes public safety. We will have the best re-entry program in the nation because it's a top priority of mine.
Okay, Mr. Garcia.
Well, first, universally, nobody feels safe. Universally. And it doesn't matter where you live, north, south, east, west. It doesn't matter, male, female, what age group, what racial background. Nobody feels safe anywhere. And so how do we make people feel safe? Actually, let me take one step back. As it relates to these statistics, I believe a lot of crimes just not even being reported. When you talk to people, the minor snatch and grab, busting into a car, stealing something, most people are now just giving up. They're not even reporting it. That's the anecdote evidence I hear regularly at forums and everywhere else. So what would I do? Well, first, resources are going to be tight. So what I'm not going to do is make a statement like, I'm going to hire 1,000 police and these sorts of things that are not even reasonable or rational. And so what would I do? First, if you look at the firefighter model, if you think about it, they already know that the fastest way to a fire is they have fire stations spread out throughout the community. I want to bring back and expand significantly community policing. Why? Because they already know the fastest way is to spread out the resources, and I would do that with the police department. Why? Because number one, the visibility of them will be a deterrent, just having them there. Number two, they can get to crime faster. The response time is another reason why people have given up, because the response time is just unacceptably low. So that's one thing I would do to get back to the concept of officer friendly and people knowing their local police department. Number two, I've been told that lighting is a significant problem because high crime areas, one thing that's universal to all of them is they have very poor lighting. And so we need to do something as easy as expand our lighting, really focus on making sure they're all working, and potentially put better lighting in certain areas, the high crime areas. Third, the other thing I've discovered in this process, there are a lot of police officers doing civilian work. And that was in the PFM study. So I would try to focus on hiring more civilians. It's easier, it's faster to do the civilian work so we could free up police officers to do more policing. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you so very much. Well, first of all, it is a pain that everyone feels. But I think if you're a mayor, you've got to give people hope. You've got to give them inspiration that together we're going to fight crime and we're going to win. So I believe in targeted crime fighting. And I think a very good example was the effort that the present HPD teams did for Midtown when that horrible incident happened. I called them all 7-Elevens, and they targeted the crime there and cleaned it up. So I will have targeted crime fighting based on data and statistics of where the highest crime is, and to make sure that we use our resources to target that area and to have the neighborhood feel, wow, we see a difference. I also think there's some value to the storefronts that we had some years back. And how do we get them back in? Public-private partnership. And I think we can find a lot of private entities that would welcome an opportunity to work with us in public-private partnerships. I think recruiting and retention is extremely important. How do you do that? You prioritize. And maybe you do it for 2 budget years so you can get the numbers up there. 6,500 police officers, all officers will tell you that we need more. We need to be data-driven as well. We need to emphasize the federal dollars that have come in. We have a gang-busting task force with the Department of Justice and HPD. It is working. It is working, pulling out gangs from different neighborhoods. We need to work with ATF on their gun trafficking, and we need to be forceful and out front on gun violence. Obviously, we have a Wild West state with permitless carry. I don't know why that even passed the state legislature. It's absurd, but it was happy birthday for Criminals Day. We also need to make sure that we do have a large reentry. I started or worked with the Second Chance Act, the Next Step Act that we passed in the United States Congress to help the federal entities. And then I think it is extremely important to acknowledge what are the most dangerous crimes. Domestic violence. We lost 3 women, I think, yesterday. And I would target domestic violence in terms of working with agencies, training our police officers, and helping people understand how they need to leave a situation, and target sex trafficking and human trafficking, which most people don't speak of. It is the epicenter right here in Houston, Texas. So you use technology, use data, you use targeted crime fighting, and I can only say is I have no control over the judges, but I'll use the bully pulpit as someone who has chaired or been a member of the House Judiciary Committee and the Crime Subcommittee for 28 years and gotten viable legislation out, including the Violence Against Women Act that focuses on top-notch DNA labs, which I will insist that we have for the city of Houston.
Okay. Senator, you've talked about bringing DPS in. Is that still something you want to do?
Certainly that'll be an element until we increase our numbers. I can participate in recruiting at our high schools, our community colleges. We have 15,000 correction officers. You think I can't get 500 of them to move to Houston? But the DPS is already here. We won't be able to pull off the playoffs this weekend without their traffic enforcement at the ballpark. We're using their anti-gang task force. They were participating in a police chase the other day with their helicopters. Their forensic lab is much more efficient than ours. We would be foolish not to use those state resources under the direction of Chief Fenner and HPD. They currently are partnering, certainly domestic abuse. I made a call with Art when he was here, and 2 troopers beat us there. So they're here, it's just not discussed, but it'll be an element.
I can't think of a worse idea. If you look, we already have strained relationships between people, everyday community, and law enforcement. Everyone already sees regularly what DPS is doing in the Valley, where they're pushing people back into the razor wire, where they're denying them water. It's just inhumane. And you already see what's going on in Austin, where a lot of the people of color are feeling like they're racially profiled because they're essentially going after and stopping Hispanics and African American. I think it's a terrible idea. I think that ultimately we need to look at our police officers. We need to continue to focus on getting more police officers engaged, but I would not be looking to try to militarize the city.
I think we need to clarify. My good friend said he would bring 200 DPS officers here. That is far different than the collaboration that's going on now. I know about the collaboration that's going on, just as HPD collaborates with our federal law enforcement. The perpetrator, the fugitive that shot the deputy some months back was commandeered with federal law enforcement on site, including the U.S. Marshal. So we do have pathways and opportunities to work together. I applaud that. But when you say you're announcing 200, and you've already heard, as has been said from cities like Austin, that it does not work. They do not fit in the neighborhood. They're more preferable for our highways. And I do think if you're going to build community police relationships, I use the term relationships, because I want the community and the police to have relationships and young people to have relationships. And we have these issues of dealing with younger Houstonians. I want them to feel comfortable in this city. And so it would not be a good idea. I have confidence in HPD. I have confidence in their collaborative work. By the way, there are fusion centers that we utilize where all law enforcement, state, local, county, and city sit together. And I just might throw in that I feel very comfortable with county government. Every one of those commissioners, Republican and Democratic, and county judge I have worked with, and we have a great working relationship, and I expect that will continue as the mayor of the city of Houston.
Thank you.
I'm wondering, Senator, if you have talked to Kirk Watson about his experience.
Yes, I'm very familiar. I would not mention this without doing my due diligence. First of all, we're 2,000 officers short in the city of Houston. Response time is at an all-time high. Chief Fenner works with the DPS. Austin was making a difference until they had an incident, which quite frankly, if you look at the video, was misrepresented. Dallas, Eric Johnson was using them for hot spots and did a great job. This is not the border, this is urban policing. They need to back up HPD. They need to patrol our freeways for traffic enforcement, DWIs, freeing up HPD to be in the communities. It's just foolish to demagogue over bringing in a professional police department that people, quite frankly, would welcome, and welcoming my idea in the community discussions.